this October the 4th, 2022 meeting of the Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission meeting to order. And at this time, we'll go ahead and call the roll. Treasurer Ball.
Here.
Representative Bentley.
Here.
Vic Brown.
Here.
Karen Butcher.
Here.
Carlos Cameron.
Here.
Secretary Eric Friedlander.
Alan Brunzel as his designee. He will arrive, I think, at some point. He was going to be late.
Thank you, sir. Executive Director Van Ingram.
Yes, sir.
Von Purdy.
Here.
Dr. Jason Root.
Here.
Dr. Sharon Walsh.
Here.
All right. Our next scheduled business meetings that will take us through the remainder of the year are November 15, 2022 and December 13, 2022. Both of those meetings will occur at 1 p.m. Eastern Time and will be held here at 1024 Capitol Center Drive, Frankfort, Kentucky, 40601, Suite 200, Conference Room A. Each member has a copy of the minutes from the August 29, 2022 meeting in front of you. If you haven't already, take a moment to please review those. And just as a matter of record, these were distributed by email by staff, I believe, toward the end of last week. If there is someone who is comfortable enough to do it, are there any needs for any amendments? If there are none, is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The minutes from the last meeting are formally adopted by unanimous vote. I'm going to go ahead and go through my update with everybody, and I think that this meeting should be very efficient in terms of the way it operates for the remainder of the agenda today. I want to encourage everybody to please use your state email addresses for purposes of conducting official business. Everything that we do by way of communication is official and is subject to open record requests and subpoenas and all the other requests that can come through by way of formality. We want to make sure that we have all commission business within a state email system so nobody's got to rifle through personal email accounts to extract the information that we need. If anybody is having difficulty connecting or utilizing those state email addresses, please see Mr. Scott Hornbuckle, who is one of our two executive staff advisors, and he will make sure that you get connected with the help that you need to utilize those as they need to be utilized. At the last meeting, we decided to adopt the financial disclosure form that is used by the Executive Branch Ethics Commission for our own personal financial disclosures. Please get with Ms. Chavies to complete those if you're having trouble getting those completed and filed. We want to make sure that every member of the commission has the financial disclosure form filed by the end of this month. We must have that done before we start getting applications in for review purposes. The town halls, thus far we have had 2. We have 6 more to go. We got us a nice warm-up in Pikeville. The substance and spirit of that meeting was top-notch. That was followed by Ashland that was conducted last Tuesday. We had approximately 100 attendees. We were there for about 2.5 hours. And while I would defer to others to give a full critique, I would rate the spirit and substance of that town hall to be exceptional. It was exactly what we hoped to be able to achieve in terms of asking people to come, to be present with us, to be authentic and real about the nature of this problem, the way in which they've dealt with it, and the fallout that has spread throughout their communities as they've contended with it over the past 25 years now. And it was heart-wrenching. It was very sincere, and it was beautiful in terms of the truth that came out there, and I hope that we are able to replicate that spirit and substance as we move through the state. Our next one will be on October the 11th in Hazard at the Forum. That will be followed by our town hall in Covington on October the 18th at the Kenton County Government Center. All of these are going to be at 6 p.m. local time. That will be followed by the one in Lexington on October the 26th at the UK Student Center, followed by Louisville on November 1st at Simmons College. And then we will go to Bowling Green on November the 9th, and then we will conclude in Paducah on November the 29th. Today, you will see on old business, we're going to be getting into the grant applications and organizational disclosure forms and the regulations. We are through what I would describe as the first half of developing our organizational framework for our grant application and award process. We've got the barn door constructed. Now we've just got to get the rest of the barn completed. And what is that? Well, we want to make sure that we have our memorandums of agreement, all of our necessary contract language in place that will govern our relationships with the grantees as they come forward and receive their awards once that determination is made. And we also want to make sure that we have all of our logistical framework worked out, not just internally here with the Office of Attorney General, but with the Finance Cabinet and any other mechanisms that we're going to be relying upon to make sure that money is distributed in a timely, hitch-free way at whatever point in time we make our first awards. I think that we all aim to make sure that we're able to deliver funds and that work commences as quickly as possible once we announce those who are going to be receiving funds from this commission. Personally, if we're able to achieve it, between the time we make an award and the time the cash is delivered, we don't want there to be any more than 90 days to pass. And if we can shorten that time frame substantially, we're going to do it. But I don't believe in under-promising and under-delivering. I would rather under-promise and over-deliver. And so the next part of this process is going to be getting those memorandums of agreement in place, getting our language in place, making sure that they can be customized to the grantee, making sure that all the trains are going to run on time when it comes to the financial, logistical infrastructure that delivers the funds. That's going to be consuming, I believe, probably the next 2 to 3 months of our and the staff's time, making sure all of that is ironed out. That completes my update, and at this time, we'll move to the grant application. For those who are in attendance and those who may be watching remotely, we began the process of developing this grant application in earnest in July. And this has gone through several circulations, starting with the subcommittees, who at the last meeting on August the 29th put their hands on it and performed a substantial amount of revision work. All of those revisions were aggregated and incorporated into the form by staff. Once that was done, it was again circulated to all members so that they could take a look, issue another round of comments, and then there'll be another round of revisions made. And so what you now have in front of you is what we consider to be the final draft after 2 to 3 circulations among all of the commission members. This was circulated in the same email that was attached to the minutes that was sent out toward the end of last week, so everybody would have time to do a final look at and review before we move to approval. So at this point in time, I would now entertain a motion to adopt the application that now sits in front of you so that it can be uploaded to the portal and ready to go by the middle of this month. Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? If there's no discussion, with the motion made and seconded, all those in favor of adopting the application that we have, understanding that we can always come back and make revisions on an as-needed basis, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. The next form that is up for review and adoption is as critical as the application, and that is the organizational disclosure form. We want to make sure that everybody who is watching this process knows who has come to request a grant, who they are, what they do, where they get their money, who's on their board, who's on their executive leadership team, so that we have full and complete transparency. Is there a motion that the organizational disclosure form be adopted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the organizational disclosure form that is before you, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then finally, we have the regulations that were initially drafted, and and I believe distributed at the very first meeting that we had in July. There have been, much like the application, a series of revisions to the language, making sure that we have the appropriate nomenclature in place. This commission has the ability to issue emergency regulations on an as-needed basis. So what you have in front of you is the beginning and not the end. We want to make sure that we have these in place before we start about the business of receiving grant applications. Is there a motion that the regulations before you be adopted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have a question, and this is one of those things we really may need to put in at a later point. But I know we have a blank for the X amount of dollars in reserve. And I just want to make sure that's not an oversight. Like, we're really trying to make sure we leave that open for a while, or if we have an idea of how much we want to put in there.
That is left open on purpose
Okay.
and not an oversight.
Okay, great.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the regulations that you see in front of you, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All three of those items have been unanimously adopted. Thank you all for the attention that you gave each of these documents, for the feedback that you provided. And as we go through this process, insofar as there are things that work and that need to be affirmed, we will affirm them. Insofar as there are things that need to be revised and adjusted based on our experience, we will be able to do so, and we will do so quickly. New business, and this isn't necessarily anything that requires a vote, but I do want to make sure that it is announced, that it is read, and that it is clarified, not just for the commission members and those who are assembled here today, but for those who are going to be watching us remotely and perhaps watching us later. And that pertains to what's going to be our public engagement policy. At the last meeting we conducted, there was a significant amount of discussion about how it is that we need to conduct our business individually as we are approached by folks within the state about the work that we're doing and their desire to educate us about what it is that they are doing in response to the opioid epidemic. So without any further ado, I'm just going to read what has been drafted and what we intend to implement by way of a public engagement policy. And I would invite discussion on this. Again, it's not a voting item, but I want to make sure that it is out there for clarity purposes. Business meetings of the Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission are open to the public. During the designated public comment periods, any member of the public who attends a business meeting may address the full commission on any issue reasonably related to opioid use disorder or other mental health disorders. Insofar as commission members have an obligation to be informed by and responsive to constituents, individual commission members may communicate and/or meet with individuals and/or organizations about the opioid epidemic and related efforts to address it. However, such communications and meetings shall not discuss any information related to the specifics of any grant proposal that may be, is being, or has been generated by an individual or organization. We have a dual set of responsibilities. The first responsibility is to be educated and in touch with every facet of this issue and those who are living with it and trying to fix it. The second obligation is to make sure that the public sees our hands at all times on the table in terms of what we have had them in, and that they have full confidence that we have not exercised any inappropriate influence or traded on the basis of insider information into those who are within our personal networks. That is the purpose of this policy. And it is presumed, given the esteemed nature of the individuals around this table, that this doesn't require any sort of re-emphasis because everyone who is sitting here comes with the highest commended character. Are there any questions? Any discussion? Objections? Thank you all very much. And without further ado, that will be the public engagement policy that we adhere to. We're now to the public comments and remarks section. We have a couple of folks who have signed up. And if you did not happen to sign up but wish to speak after these individuals, you are welcome to do so. At this time, I'd like to call and recognize Tara Hyde with an organization identified as People Advocating Recovery.
Should I just stand?
Stand wherever you're comfortable.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you all so much for being here and being of service. And I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about people advocating recovery and some of the work that we do. And then also I had some things that I'd like to just bring to your attention. So people advocating recovery, we work to eliminate barriers for those seeking recovery and treatment on an individual basis. And we also work to help eliminate barriers and challenges that stakeholders like treatment providers and recovery community organizations do to facilitate their services for the community. So some of the things that I really wanted to just bring to your attention as a commission is I've been doing a lot of work just on the ground trying to get information out to the community about some of the town halls and just information of where they can attend and just making sure that the community knows so that way they can participate. That's something that I definitely take a lot of pride in. So I just wanted to make sure that I don't know in what way the commission and or who is facilitating some of those conversations with local media or with some elected officials that are in those communities that you're going to, right, to participate in the town halls. But there's been a lot of just information that I don't think has been getting to those people and those community members. So I just want to put that out there because there's been people asking me about it, right? And I've talked a lot about the town halls and ways that people can following the website and just to stay engaged, even sharing about this meeting itself. So I just want to make sure the community knows because this is their lives, their families' lives, people's lives have been touched and traumatized among other things. So that was definitely one thing I wanted to just raise as a concern of some folks that have shared with me. And then also in the same breath, in what way are we disseminating information about the applications? Just as people wanting to know hey, when can I apply? Where do I apply? How, what sort of stuff do I need to get in order to apply? And I'm sure that information is coming out, not to say anything, but I just want to, put some of these questions out there because these are questions that, some of my community members and things have brought to me. And as a representative, I want to make sure that you guys are aware of those things as well as things for some of the smaller nonprofits, right? We have some pretty large nonprofits across the state, but some of the smaller ones who may not have a very strong infrastructure, it might take them a lot of time to kind of put together an application package depending on what sort of pieces are in those. So what does that time frame look like for the application period? So that way they can make sure to get all of the pieces and documents that they need. Again, a lot of that has to do with communication and just making sure folks know when those deadlines are and whatnot. So definitely just wanted to recognize that, to bring that to your attention. Thank you all so much, and thank you for allowing me to share and speak on that behalf.
Thank you.
Ms. Hyde, thank you very much, and I do want to be responsive to a couple of the things that you have mentioned.
Great.
First of all, we have a tremendous communication team that is being headed up by Acting Director Krista Locke. We have our two executive staff advisors in the form of Mr. Scott Hornbuckle and Ms. Allison Shavies. They're working cooperatively to deliver information as bulk as possible through as many communications channels that we have available as possible to disseminate word far and wide. As I'm sure you and others recognize, we have a tremendously fractured media environment, and you have to pull a whole lot of threads together in order to get a continual flow of information that is coordinated and that is as widely disseminated as possible. So for instance, leading up to the town halls, not only did the communications office reach out to all local press, but Mr. Hornbuckle and Ms. Shavies compiled a comprehensive email list of local elected officials, organizations that are dedicated to treatment and recovery and prevention, as well as faith-based organizations. And I think that there were probably in excess of about 300 emails that were blasted out between Pikeville and Ashland. Frankly, we depend on organizations like yours to help amplify what it is that we are doing, because grassroots networks are far more effective than official offices many times when it comes to getting out information in a viral capacity that drives attendance. So we welcome your partnership on that front.
Absolutely.
In terms of the application portal, we again will utilize the informational resources that we have at our disposal to make sure that folks know when the green light is on. Our timeline for that has been on or before October the 15th. I believe that we're going to meet that. These meetings are always live streamed. They are on the YouTube channel for anybody to go and look at in perpetuity. And they can connect to the Office of Attorney General's website to look at those anytime, and all this information can be conveyed. If I had a magical megaphone where I could impart this knowledge on a mass basis into every set of ears across this state, I would do it. But the magic is going to be in the hands of you and folks like you and your organization to get this word out. And thank you for being here.
Absolutely, thank you.
Now, forgive me for not being able to read the last name, but I am going to call upon Ms. Rebecca, who is with, I can tell the word Solutions, CTTS.
My last name is Sprague, and that ink pen moved really fast. Sprague, with a B.
Oh, gotcha.
That ink pen was smooth. I don't know which one it was. So I wanted to follow Ms. Tara's comments and questions just a little bit, talk about grassroots, and then the most local town hall for me will be in Hazard, which is the one that's coming up. So I wanted to ask, before I got into kind of like what we do and how we, tell all these things, is being a grassroots, what does the commission need? What do they expect in Hazard? And how can I be supportive of the commission and making sure that if there's something that we've not heard yet, maybe I can help and partner with Tara and some of the other friendly faces I've seen in the room, make sure that we're getting those people into the town halls, because that's important. So that's my first question, is how can I help you with the Hazard Town Hall meeting? And then the second one you answered with having a little bit of a conversation about the policy with how people are expected to share with the commission what we've got going on, because there are a lot of really great ideas in the state. I think it's really important that we recognize that Kentucky's leading in a lot of these issues too. So if we can just kind of open the barn door, as you said, opening the meeting, and talk about those things, that's what we're doing. And then technology, how are we using technology? And then extending support to the team that you guys have blasting out these emails. If you all are looking for support, identifying that, defining it, and being supportive in that way. So, now a lot of the same questions that Tara did.
Well, thank you again for being here. And the thing that we need, not just in Hazard, but everywhere else, is for folks who are living with addiction, those who are in recovery, family members of those folks, and family members of folks who are no longer with us, to show up and talk about the reality of these circumstances. We need to hear survivor and family survivor stories, as well as the stories of those whose families claim casualties in this problem. We need to hear the reality and all of its ugliness. We also need to hear about the beauty of the response that the community has managed to leverage with the various things that people have done to try to address that within the context of their home. And so far as you have a network of your own that you can say, hey, get your folks to show up and share the truth, that's what we want.
Okay. That's what we'll work on. Rebecca Brace, it wasn't on there, and we have an outpatient counseling practice, and we're utilizing technology for accountability. So we hope to be able to talk with you all a little bit more about that and fill the town hall in Hazard.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here present who's not on the list who wishes to speak? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Leela Salisbury. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Center for Grieving Children and Families, located in Lexington. I believe we think of death loss typically as an older person problem, but increasingly for Kentucky, it's a children's and young people's problem directly related to the opioid epidemic. Kentucky ranks number 5 in the nation in childhood bereavement, meaning 1 in 10 children lose a parent or sibling by the age of 18, and that number doubles by the age of 25. 25% of those childhood bereavements are parental deaths by opioid. 10,000, the latest data modeling shows that 10,570 children under 18 have lost a parent to opioid deaths. By age 25, that number rises to over 20,000. You could fill Rep Arena to the rafters with the number of bereaved children in this state. Congressional districts 3, 4, and 6 show the highest number of opioid bereaved children, painting this picture. Broadening the picture, this is also a very urban issue. We talk a lot about the issue in rural areas, and it's certainly a problem there, but this new data that I've shared with the commission shows it as much more of an urban issue as well. So what we do, our piece of it is providing grief support groups, education for caregivers, and also advocacy around the issues related to children's bereavement. Childhood bereavement's been correlated to a number of negative outcomes, many of which, we talk about frequently: poor physical health, far greater risk of alcohol and substance abuse and dependency cycles, relationship problems, lower educational attainments, and lower overall lifetime income. 20% of bereaved children are suspended, expelled, or have to repeat a grade in school. So we're talking about significantly disrupted developmental trajectories for these kids. I'll just share a story from one of our groups, one of our high school groups. We had a 9th grade student who recounted in group having to plan her mother's funeral. Her mother had overdosed spectacularly in their front yard, and this 15-year-old was left to be the person to try to put the pieces back together. So these are the kids we're talking about who need the support to help, get them back on track and create productive lives. So I'm just here to ask gratefully for you all to consider funding for preventative grief support programming for Kentucky's young people. I think they need to be part of what we're thinking about as we talk about long cycles. Helping support the young people is one of the ways we can break some of these cycles that we're looking to disrupt. So thank you. I appreciate being able to share this information with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm Robert Mccool from the Kentucky Injury Prevention and Research Center, and I know several of you. And very briefly, I'll say that the reason that I became involved in injury prevention and public health was from public safety. And this is Director Ingram, for example, I think is where he is now because of things in his previous public safety career. You realize sometimes that picking up the pieces after the fact is the most difficult part. In my case, it started with traffic safety, realizing that no matter how good an EMT I was never going to be able to do nearly as much with twisted metal and broken glass and broken people as I could by trying to prevent people from having car crashes in the first place. So I would just encourage the commission as you move forward to really make a strong effort to support primary prevention. Certainly there's a need for harm reduction. There's absolutely a need for recovery and treatment programs. But I think we also have to do as much as we can up front to stem the tide, because we know we're never going to be 100% successful. But if we can't completely plug the hole in the boat, if we can slow the water down, then we have a lot better chance of bailing it out. So I just want to encourage strong support for primary prevention programs and an effort to try to keep our citizens from becoming victims of substance use disorder to begin with, because it's so much better for their lives and so much more likely that they'll have a positive outcome if they can avoid that route entirely. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Anyone else here present who wishes to speak? All right. If there is no one, that'll be the closing of the public comments and remarks section. The next portion on the agenda pertains to our subcommittees, and this is going to be a unique arrangement that I imagine will take not just this meeting, but perhaps the next, and maybe into December. We have a dedicated reform and compliance subcommittee that has the mission of developing recommendations for changes to statutes, regulations, and policies within the state that will better equip us to address any and all aspects of this issue. Now that is a big job for just a couple of folks. And as I continue to serve within this role, every day I am reminded about how much it is that I have to learn. And that is an expanded universe of information that I am able to perceive. Insofar as we have a diverse number of individuals with diverse experiences at this table, it becomes critical that everybody be able to supply feedback and constructive advice as to those things that we need to change, create, revise, or tweak within the legislature, within cabinet agencies, within the state as a whole. in order to prepare us to move the needle. And so what I'm gonna ask is that as we break out into the subcommittees, that each committee take its area of emphasis, whether it's treatment and recovery, whether it's prevention, and whether it is reform and compliance itself, and begin the process of composing the wish list that we as the commission will have for all those concerned, whether again, they be legislatures, they be cabinet heads, whether they be policymakers of any shape, form, or fashion. We've got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here as this commission to give a recitation of those things that need to change. That's a big job. It's not anything that we're going to get done today, but we're going to start that process today. We're going to start it within our subcommittee structures. And so at this time, I'd like to ask and entertain for a motion to adjourn to the subcommittees.
So moved.
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Please convene with your groups, chairs. You have your agendas in front of you. If there's anything that you need to facilitate your discussions or resources that you need to get a hold of, let me, Ms. Shavies, Mr. Hornbuckle know, and we'll make sure you have it.
Ryan, do we go back to the same room we did last time?
pilots, and each committee will report to the reform and compliance with the pilots list, provide the staff, we'll look it over, and I would imagine we'll go back for round 2 at the next meeting, just for purposes of clarifying and continuing to compile. And we will try to have a deadline of having all these recommendations finalized by about that December meeting, no later than the January meeting, once that is scheduled. In terms of the next section of the agenda are updates and announcements. I'll do some, and then we'll just kind of go around the table for any commission member who has anything that they feel that everyone needs to hear or otherwise know about. Again, as a reminder, our next town hall will be at the Forum in Hazard at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on October 11th. Our next regular business meeting will be here in Frankfort on November 15, 2022 at 1 p.m. Tomorrow, each commission member is going to receive a specific regulation and reporting form that pertains to the political subdivisions, being the counties and the cities. We have talked about the best way in which the commission can utilize its statutory and regulatory authority to assure that we have accountability and transparency across the board when it comes to the money. And so each commission member will be getting what's going to be a proposed regulation and a proposed reporting form that will require quarterly financial reporting in detail as to how each city and county have spent the money that they are going to receive. And for purposes of public consumption, at the present time, we still do not know how much money each county and city is going to receive. The global settlement group that is in charge of this entire thing is still yet hammering out what the attorney fee award is going to be for the attorneys who were all involved. And of course, when you get to a snag in progress, 9 out of 10 times there's going to be some lawyer at the very front of the line jamming it up, and that's where we're at right now. As soon as there is information that we can disseminate as to how much to the penny money each county and city is going to receive, that will be pushed out through the Kentucky League of Cities, through KCO, and through the Attorney General's office itself. In the meantime, we've got a responsibility to make sure that we meet the needs of the constituents of the state as well as the expectations of the legislature to ensure that there is due diligence with regard to that money. And you'll be getting what we think is the way we're going to do that tomorrow in your email. In anticipation of that November 15th meeting, the things that we have done today by way of the adoption of our application form, of our organizational disclosure form, and our reg, the legalities are such that we have made our votes. Those votes are adoptions from the commission perspective of what we're going to utilize. The next step is for the executive branch of the governor's office to put ink of approval on those regs. At that point in time, they will be final and they will be the so-called law of the land. And that should be a process that, by way of time, concludes no later than the end of this year. Insofar as we have the application form ready to be uploaded and utilized, when folks go on to see it, it's going to be described as an intent to file. Everything that you compile by way of the application material is what it is going to be. And once the pen of approval is inked, that information will convert into, again, this is a legality, the application. That's of no consequence practically to anybody who's going to apply, but it is of consequence to us just as a matter of recognizing the legalities involved in the process that we're going to follow to get to legal finality. Are there any quick comments or updates? And we'll go counterclockwise, starting with.
The only thing, I just continue to see the parallel between this money and also recovery-ready communities. And if we are not educated, and the people here who are visiting in attendance in this meeting, if you're not aware of recovery-ready communities, I'd like to talk to you, or you can also look that up.
Thank you. Dr. Rube?
Nothing to share.
I just want to express my gratitude to the people from the public who are attending these meetings and participating in these small group discussions, because I think that they bring some real life experience from the sector that they're working in that can really help to inform this committee. So I'd like to encourage people to continue to come to the remaining meetings to help us with this work.
Thank you.
To Karen's point, the Office of Drug Control Policy has the order to establish a recovery-ready community framework. Last week, we rolled out our first draft of what recovery-ready communities can look like. The commission, the advisory council has 2 weeks to give us comment back, and we've got some comment from some other stakeholders. We will meet again on December 1st here in Frankfurt at 125 Home Street to re-present this to the full council for a vote of what a recovery-ready community should look like. There's different phases, so if it's under 10,000 people, it would look like this. If it's 10,000 to 25,000, it would look like this. Volunteers of America, Mid-States is our partner on this project. We think we've come up with a pretty good draft, but like anything else, we think it could be improved on. If you'd like to see that, email me and I will send it to you. Also, Senate Bill 90, that's another project we're implementing along with behavioral health and also administrative, also the courts, as well as Department of Medicaid. The next meeting of that group will be on October 24th at 1 p.m., where we're just going to be updating from our different committees as to how we are progressing. There's 11 counties selected. The first one meeting was held with Kenton County was last week, and over the course of between now and the end of the year, we'll have meetings in the other 10 communities.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but are you able to tell us which the other 10 communities are?
Yes, but I can't remember them. But I can get that to you, Brian. You can distribute it out. If I try to guess, I'll leave somebody out.
Thank you for the information. And certainly, I think this commission wants to be able to replicate and amplify everything that y'all are working on so that we get information as far and wide as we can.
And as you, I think we mentioned this the last time, Dr. Marks and I presented at the League of Cities a couple weeks ago, and we really encouraged them to look at recovery-ready communities as they look at their opioid abatement funds and take stock of what they have in their community, but more importantly, what they don't have in their community, that these funds may be able to address, whether that's transitional housing or transportation or what that might be. And we'll be presenting at CAECO also in November.
Thank you, sir. Secretary Friedlander?
Just echoing what's been just said, actually. And, you know, the challenge for this group, the challenge all the groups, CORE, Senate Bill 90 group, recovery, you know, the recovery-ready communities, and the discussion that we had with some of the prevention pieces around behavioral health is wrapped up in this. Oftentimes, to try to separate out substance use and behavioral health is sometimes quite a tricky thing to do. And there are other pieces that are going on. The administrative office of the courts has a behavioral health piece, that there are courts and behavioral health that had its very first meeting, I think just maybe a week or two ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are pieces that we're all just going to have to keep our eye on, and certainly this is also a piece of that. Some of that diversion piece, some of the things that we've been talked about within the prevention side of it. All of these pieces do fit together, and the better we're able to make them fit together, the better it's going to be for Kentucky.
Thank you. Representative Billy?
My committee is Reform and Compliance, which deals with statutory, regulations, and policy. Now, there's 3 of us on that committee, but I'm sure we're missing one of those 3 from you all out there. So I would hope that you would send me an email if you have a question about a regulatory, compliance, policy, and send to us. Because actually, when those things affect you, it's a personal thing. Remember up in Ashland, they said they reduced the number of insurance days with the insurance here in Kentucky? Maybe we could change that. Or if it was saying we needed people on prevention, that we need to put a regulatory or change the statute that prevention's taught K through 12. So that's what I'm saying. If you got an idea, send it to us. Because I'm non-voting on this commission, but I do know how to put a bill in front of the House.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cameron?
Coming from the 5th District, as we know here in Kentucky, was the epicenter of the opioid attack, and that we've dealt with. And it's an honor to be part of a group. And I think I told Dr. Friedlander earlier in some of them, it's rewarding to, you kind of get tired, and I know Vic's been working in his realm of expertise for years. It gets tiresome, you think nobody cares anymore. And then we see this group coming together, and the community members are coming to be a part of it, and really excited to see what we can bring as a non-voting member. But I work for a guy that swings a pretty big stick nationally, and we want to see the right stuff happen and want to help in whatever way we can. And to see those small groups that we talked about get the help that they deserve, because that's where it started. And whatever I can do to add to this group, I want to be a part of it.
Thank you.
You know, I think I'll actually reiterate what Representative Bentley just said a moment ago, because we were talking about what kind of reg changes need to happen, what statutory changes need to happen, and there's just 3 of us in the room, plus members of the public. And I know that you all deal with statutory issues, regulatory issues all the time. So just because you may not be in our committee, please send it our way if there's something you think needs to be reformed.
Thank you, Treasurer Bob.
I have nothing to add, sir.
Thank you.
I really don't have much to add, but I do want to say we did have in prevention, our group came up with some statutory ideas that we wanted to talk to you all about, to work on the prevention side. So we'll be bringing that forward to you.
Thank you. For those who are both present here in the audience, as well as those who are watching the live stream or may watch later on YouTube, I would like to echo what Representative Bentley had to say, and that is, please avail yourself of every communication avenue that you have as a resident of this state to provide this commission with what you think are the priorities we need to pursue by way of statutory, regulatory, or policy reform. That job is almost co-equal of consequence, if not equal with, the job we have to distribute funds in the form of grants to organizations that are looking to combat this crisis. And as a final matter, just to wrap this up, as we have had just our very first 2 town halls, you know, there's all the time a lot of hand-wringing and worrying about the state of American society and whether the country's immune system is up to par when it comes to responding to this sort of existential crisis. Somebody says, well, you know, what do you mean by immune system? I mean faith, family, and community. And as awful as this problem is, and it is unprecedented in its horror, there is no question but that the immune system of the society is very strong, just based on the anecdotal observations that we've been able to make both in Pikeville and in Ashland. The full force of communities are there, and they are there in spirit, they are there in act, and I have a deep and abiding faith that while there's got to be some coordination, and there's got to yet be some cohesion, that we absolutely still have the backbone that we've always had to overcome this. And I am very pleased to have seen each of y'all here and to be serving in this capacity with you. And without further ado, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank y'all.